going back to safety, there's a story in the news, unfortunately, of a tragedy that happened on an independent film set. They did have an armorer, but they were not doing their job properly, and someone was injured and someone was killed. Um, Now, I obviously this would never have happened on one of your sets, but if you're for our viewers who are on set and don't have a lot of experience, what should they see the either the armorer or the prop master doing that lets them know, because a PA who's watching this isn't going to be able to like do anything, but they should at least be aware of what the proper procedure is so that they know this person is behaving safely. What should be happening every time a gun comes up on set, whether it's a prop or a real gun with fake bullets or whatever. I'm using the terminology wrong, by the way, I'm sure. So please correct
It's
me
all
on that
good.
as well.
It's all
Yeah.
good. I totally, I don't think your terminology is completely wrong. I think your terminology is fine in the sort of the layman terms. What I'll say is I have 5 steps. Your PAs and the people on set will only see steps 3, 4, and 5 if they're near the camera and the filming floor. But basically all prop masters or armors, I've done both, but I'm also smart enough as a prop master now that I always bring in an armor when there's a firearm out, because as you heard before, we are dealing with 99% of the crew all the time. So I want somebody whose focus is just the firearm. But when I'm doing a movie like Open Range or Jesse James, where I ended up doing a lot of the armoring, here's the process. I pull the weapon that's needed on the set out of my vault. The first thing I do is I inspect it. I inspect it, barrel's empty, everything's empty, it's completely clear, it's completely safe. The next thing I do is, if I have to put dummy bullets in it, then I inspect all my ammo.
Like
I then
each
load
individual bullet.
each individual. I look at every blank and I look at every dummy round. And there's
So what is the
three
difference between that,
ways.
between a dummy and a
Okay.
blank? Because I honestly don't know.
Yeah. So basically a dummy bullet looks like a real bullet, but there are 3 ways to make it safe. One is the primers have already been struck, but they still have a marble in them. So you hear the rattle, you hold it up to your ear and you hear a marble going back and forth. There's no powder. The primer has been struck, so it's inert. If you have a dummy that has to look like it hasn't been shot and you're doing a loading sequence on a close-up, then you have a primer that is not struck, but you still have the rattler in there. So you always rattle it. It looks like a real bullet. You would never be able to tell unless you picked it up and went like that. And you could hear the rattler. And if you don't hear a rattler, then you don't use that dummy. You just don't do it. The third one is if nobody needs to see anything other than the shell heads in I'm talking Western revolver,
Right.
then you can have no primer, you can have a drilled out side, and basically there's nothing there that will fire. So those are the 3 things you're looking for when you're loading a dummy bullet. Step 2, that's me checking everything. Then I take everything, put it in my set cart, and I lock it. Roll it up to set. Here's where your PA, here's where your on-set crew watching the prop master or the armor arriving with the firearm or firearms. There could be multiple armors, but I'll keep it to one because whatever section you're in, there's somebody. I open the cart, I put in the appropriate dummies. I even check them one more time. Then what I do is I actually cycle those through. I drop the hammer on that revolver 7 times. 6-shot revolver, but I'll cycle it through 7 times. Then I will go up to the first assistant director and I'll go, okay, here we go. I open it up and I show him all the primers are struck, and then I will cycle it through 7 times for that person. Then I will call the camera crew over. If they're not there with the AD, I'll call the camera crew over and anybody who wants to look, and I'll cycle that revolver one more time again.
That's what I
And then when the
remember.
actor arrives,
The first time I was
yeah,
ever
go
on
ahead.
the first time I was ever on a movie with a gun, I remember the prop guy calling everybody over and says, "For anybody wants to see," and I was like, "What would that be for?" And I did. I had
Yeah,
never heard of a real tragedy happening. It seemed pointless to me.
yeah,
It's only when something bad like this happens that I realize it's good that he made
absolutely.
that offer to everyone who wanted to
Yeah,
see it.
absolutely. And so then once everybody's seen it, the actors arrive. I do the same thing that everybody's just seen. The actor now gets that. So that if in the type of scene you're doing, he has to have that revolver out, And a lot of times people go, oh, they should use a rubber gun and this and that. A lot of times actors like to feel the weight of a real revolver, especially if they have to draw it on camera. They want the real weight. So you can leave the dummies out, whatever. There are just so many steps, but there are 5 fundamental steps that you follow to put that revolver. And the other thing is nobody, absolutely nobody, is allowed to touch a firearm on a set other than armorer, prop master, representatives of either of those departments, either armor assistants or prop assistants that are assigned to specific weapons, and the actor. No other hands touch that weapon ever. It goes literally from I'm going to put myself there. It goes from my hand, once everybody's ready, everything's safe, into the actor's hands. We do what we need to do, and then I take it back from the actor. Nobody, no ADs, no director, no, somebody down the corner that wants to touch it. The location guy, hey, I had guns shooting gophers. Can I hold your gun? No, nobody touches it ever. And so explaining that, hearing in the media, everybody can make their own assumptions as to what went wrong. So basically nobody did anything. That's what went wrong. And the wrong person handed the firearm in.
It sounds like every single step was skipped or done incorrectly. And I wasn't there, and I don't want to say anything, but charges have been filed. So for any actors who happen to be watching this, it would be, although they don't know what a primer looks like, they shouldn't accept the gun from anybody but the prop master or the armorer, right? Like for the reasons that you're explaining.
Correct. I mean, nobody other than those two, and the person that's handing the firearm to an actor will show them everything they need to know that it is safe. And there are no questions that are dumb questions. You can't show a firearm enough to show that it is safe. So what'll happen after day 1 or day 2 on a set is they start getting comfortable with you. But I still don't let that be a reason to not go through the process. I've had a couple actors going, why are you showing me this again? You just showed it to me 5 minutes ago. And I go, it was out of your sight. So you need to know. You just need to know. Trust me, you need to know. And yeah, it's tragic. We have all these steps. Hollywood invented safe firearms on set. In Canada, we have a system that is the Hollywood system that is flawless. It's flawless. I've put over 2 million rounds through my firearms in my career with no hiccups, no worries. I mean, yes, you have the odd misfire when you're loading, but it's so rare. But nobody's ever in the firing line when it happens.
Right.
But it's just sad, really. It's so tragic and unnecessary.
Now, that's talking about dummy rounds that aren't actually going to be firing, and they just need to look good on camera. But blanks are slightly different because they make a sound and they do make a flash. Do you think so you think rubber guns aren't necessarily a good substitute because the actor needs to feel the weight of a heavy gun or whatever? Do you think in this day and age when it's pretty easy to add a muzzle flash in CGI, do you think blanks are obsolete, or do you think there's still a purpose to those? And then in terms of safety, if you are using them, what's the difference?
I think it's always situational. We've been using CGI muzzle flash for the best part of the last decade when we get into situations that we feel aren't safe. I think that when you have world-class armorers on your set, they can make that call as to, I don't think we can make this shot safe, so let's just CGI and move on. The tricky thing is I do a lot of historical things. So a lot of times good replicas of historical firearms are not available. I'll use All Quiet on the Western Front as an example, the Academy Award nominated film that just came out on Netflix not too long ago. I also have done World War I 3 times with those weapons. You can't actually go buy those replica weapons. A lot of times you can do CGI muzzle flash in the trenches, but when I was doing my World War I things, nobody was ever in front of the muzzles. So you could actually fire the blank rounds there. So it's just always, you just need to make sure you hire professionals, and we can tell you whether it's safe or not. I know there's a big call to ban firearms and all of this. And I understand, I completely understand. But on the other side of the coin, for 130 years, we've been doing it this way. And yes, one death is too many, and we've had three with Brandon Lee, John Eric Hexam, and now sadly Halyna Hutchins. But the reality is, every one of those events, they didn't have the right personnel on set taking care of the firearm. And
Well,
there's a professional, top world-class industry that is designed to do this safely.
well, in the case of the Crow, it was also a bit of a freak accident that something got lodged in the barrel that shouldn't have been there. And now my understanding is that it's standard practice to open the barrel and shine a light through it just in case now
It
for the
was
last 30
actually
years or so.
even, yeah, but even before that, that was standard practice. Again, they
Oh,
sent
I
the
see.
armorers.
They missed a
Yeah,
step.
that wasn't,
Oh,
they
okay.
sent the armorers home. They didn't have proper dummy rounds. So, they went to the local gun shop and somebody dumped the powder out and put the head of the bullet back on for a loading sequence. The primers were still live. And what happens when you have a live primer, there used to be a way that they would just boil the primers to make them inert, but it wasn't a foolproof system. And so when the primer struck, it pushed the barrel up in, or the bullet head into the barrel. And then when they took the bullets out, nobody noticed that one of the heads was missing. They put it back in the drawer for 24 hours. They came in the next day. Again, the armor there, they only had a full load blank available to them. Put that in. There was a bullet in the barrel. And when they pulled the trigger, a lot of times a full load blank will have a little bit more powder in it than a bullet. So that's a lot of bad mistakes were made again by inexperienced, incompetent people. It's just that back then there was not as much internet and coverage. So yeah.
You mentioned a third one. The Brandon Lee one is fairly famous, and the Alec Baldwin is now being talked about.
Yeah,
What was the third one?
John Eric Hexam, I don't know the exact year. It was in the early 80s. He was a star of a TV show, and there was a prop gun on a table that was loaded blanks, and he picked it up jokingly and put it to his head. And the power of a full load blank is it will blow a hole this big through yellow pages about this thick. And so he fractured his skull and was killed with a blank.
And that gun should not have been available to pick
Should
up.
not have been available to pick up with blanks in it at the table. Like, I wasn't there, so I can't speak to what the consequences were, but yeah, we don't load blanks into a firearm until just before the camera is going to roll. We stand there with the ADs and everybody, and once we know, then we'll make the weapon hot. We wait for everybody to put on their safety gear. We make sure all the Lexan's up to protect the camera crew. Everybody is safe and protected. And when the camera rolls, the actor still doesn't have the firearm in their hand until they say camera roll, and then we'll step in and go, weapon is hot, 4 rounds, full load, whatever. And they call the shot. We do the take. We go in and take the weapon away when they say cut. Nobody takes off their safety gear. Everybody freezes until we make sure the weapon is clear. And then we say, weapon is clear. And everybody can take their earphones off and be safe.